It's okay to doubt. Today we're in the book of Mark, chapter 9, verse 15. If you're in your church Bible, it's already been bookmarked to page 1571. But if you're in your own Bible, we're in Mark chapter 9, verse 15. It's okay to doubt. Sometimes as we go through our faith walk, sometimes we doubt. Sometimes we wonder. And I'm here today to tell you it's okay. And I'm not just here to tell you it's okay as pastor, I'm here to back it up with the Bible. Because remember, no matter what a pastor says, if you can't back it up in the Bible, it's not true. So I want you to know it's okay to doubt. It's okay for your faith to be low. It's okay for your faith to be weak. It's okay to doubt that God will come through with his promises. And let's see here in the Bible and in real life why it's okay to doubt and why it's not a bad thing. So I want to start with the book of Jude. Now that's one of the shortest books in the Bible. Jude, you may know, was one of the brothers of Jesus. Jude wrote in Jude 22, he said, "Be merciful to those who doubt." Be merciful to those who doubt. This is the brother of Jesus talking here. So we want to start with that premise. Some people think if you're weak in your faith and if you're doubting that you're not a good Christian. Not true. The Bible tells us we're to be merciful to those that doubt. In real life, there was a man born back in 1901. I'll tell you his name in a minute. You all know this man. He's known worldwide. But for this man that was born in 1901, there were many times in his own life that he doubted, that he wondered, could he ever be successful? Could he ever achieve his own divine destiny? His name was Walt Disney. We all know him. Walt Disney, Disneyland, Disney World, Disney theme parks now all over the world. But it wasn't always so good for Walt Disney. He wasn't always that famous, successful guy that we know him as today. When he was 18 years old, he got a job as an editor of a newspaper. But he got fired. And the reason he got fired, his boss came to him and he said, "Walt Disney, you don't have any imagination." Now, can you imagine saying to Walt Disney, Mr. Imagination of the world, that you don't have any imagination? He got fired. You better believe at age 18, he had some doubt about his future. Later on, once he started with his actual animation, the cartoons, his first company, it failed. It went bankrupt. You better believe he had some doubts. Then in his early 30s, he actually had a breakdown. He was so much doubting. Nonetheless, we all know what happened with Walt Disney. He succeeded beyond his wildest dreams or anybody else's wildest dreams. The point is, as part of his walk through life, there was doubt. But that doesn't mean that the doubt is a bad thing. It was just part of his walk. Walt Disney, if he was alive today, he would tell you, he would say part of his ultimate success was those times that he failed. And he learned from those failures. He grew from those failures and eventually became successful. So in your own lives, whatever you're going towards, whatever you want to do, maybe it's not like Walt Disney with a theme park. Maybe you have another dream. Maybe you want to be a chef. Maybe you want to be an author or a singer or a good family man or just a good counselor to people. Maybe even a pastor. Whatever your own dreams are, as you go towards those dreams, there's going to be times, just like Walt Disney, you're going to stumble. There's going to be times that you're going to have doubt. But if you'll keep that ultimate vision in front of you like Walt Disney did, and then with a little bit of help from God, it'll all come to be. But the key here is to keep in mind the Bible's view of what it's like for you to have doubt. So let's see. So let's go and talk about a guy in the Bible called Doubting Thomas. We've all heard the story. Now, Doubting Thomas was one of the original 12 disciples. And this is important, and I'll circle back on that in just a minute. So he's one of the original 12 disciples. This guy, he walked with Jesus on this earth. He watched Jesus do some amazing things just like the other disciples did. He was there in real live time. But when Jesus was crucified, went to the cross, he was resurrected, as we all know, in 3 days. Thomas, when Jesus came back from that resurrection, came back to the earth, Thomas was not one of the first disciples to see him. The other disciples saw Jesus, and they believed. It took them a while, but they believed. And then they went to Thomas, and they said, he's back. He's back. He came back. He's resurrected. Thomas basically said, no way. I don't believe it. He had huge doubt. Here's what Thomas said. He said, unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were, and this is what he says here, and put my hands in his side, he says, I will not believe. I will not believe. There's not just doubt here. He's telling flat out, I'm not going to believe it. This is doubt from a guy that walked the planet with Jesus himself. Imagine. We know about Jesus through the Bible. We know he's here with us. But imagine walking the earth with him in real live time as he's doing his miracles, laying hands on people, walking on the water, turning water into wine, healing the sick, raising people from the dead. Imagine if you were right there. Well, Thomas was. Doubting Thomas was right there. But yet, this disciple doubted. He doubted big time. How did Jesus feel about that? Did Jesus have righteous indignation? Did Jesus say, what's the matter with you? You were there with me. You've been walking the planet with me for the last 3 years. You saw all the stuff I did. What's the matter with you? You don't believe? What's the matter? No, that wasn't Jesus' attitude whatsoever. Jesus had a loving attitude towards this doubter, towards this guy that was one of his own disciples, one of the original 12. What did he say to him? He basically said to him, after he let him put his hands, he let Thomas put his hands into the wounds. After he did that, he said to him, he said, stop doubting and believe. Stop doubting and believe. So there was no recriminations here. There was no chewing out Thomas for not being a good disciple. There was no, geez, after all these years you walked with me and you failed. There was none of that, not a hint of that. Jesus actually used it as a teachable moment for everyone else that was listening. Stop doubting and believe. No recrimination whatsoever. Jesus says the same thing to you. You have doubt, you think your faith is weak, you're having trouble with your walk with the Lord. Jesus says, stop doubting and believe. But of course, Jesus gives you all kinds of reasons why you should believe. Just like with Thomas. There were 1,000 reasons why Thomas could believe, notwithstanding the fact that he actually walked with him on the planet. What a privilege that must have been to be chosen as one of the 12. Of 12 people on the entire planet, he was one of them, was chosen to be a disciple. Yet he doubted. If he doubted, I think it's okay for you to doubt. I think it's okay for me to doubt. Now, it doesn't mean you're doubting every day. Doesn't mean your faith is low every day. It just means as you walk your faith walk, there are going to be times that you're going to doubt. You're going to wonder, is God going to come through for me? Was he really resurrected? Did all that really happen? Can God really heal me? Can God help me get to my divine destiny? There'll be times you'll doubt, just like Walt Disney. There'll be times that you're going to wonder. Now, let's talk about a story in the Bible that I think we can better relate to about this doubt. It's kind of hard to relate to doubting Thomas because, well, he was a disciple. None of us and nobody else on the planet will ever get that opportunity. There were just 12 chosen by Jesus. So we can't relate to that. We're not going to be disciples. We're not going to get chosen. We might have other things that God chooses us for, but it's not to be a disciple. So that's a little harder to relate to. But let's get a story in the Bible that we can all relate to. And for that story, we're going to go to the book of Mark, chapter 9, and verse 15. But before we get into the story, let's get the backstory of what's happening here in Mark. So Jesus is walking the earth, but by this time, he's deep into his ministry. Even though Jesus was only on the earth walking it for a short period of time, at this point, he's done a lot of fantastic things. He did turn the water into wine. He did walk on the water. He healed lepers, which were incurable. He healed the centurion's servant that he never even saw by just speaking the word. Pretty amazing there. He calmed that storm. Had the storm go from this raging storm to total quiet. He raised Jairus' daughter from the dead. By this time in his ministry, he had raised people from the dead. He healed blind men. He fed the 5,000. Remember that multiplying the loaves and the fishes thing? He had done some amazing things. He healed the girl that was possessed by the demons. So Jesus is deep into his ministry. He's done these amazing things, and he's well known. Now, this is important to remember. In a time before 24-hour news, before satellites, TV, in that time, Jesus was well known. He was well known as Walt Disney is to everybody on the planet, if not more so. Everybody knew who Jesus was. But remember, not everybody loved Jesus. We love him now. We think he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and he is. But back then, it was a divided crowd. Many of them loved him. They saw the miracles. They came to him. They flocked to him. But there was another part of the crowd that didn't like him. The Pharisees, the Sadducees, they didn't like him at all. In fact, they felt threatened by Jesus. They felt so threatened by Jesus, they wanted to kill him. And guess what? They eventually did. With a little help from Rome and on that cross, they eventually crucified Jesus. So even though he's beloved now by virtually everybody on the planet, back then, not so much. They loved him, but the other crowd hated him. So that's the backstory. And now we're going to see what happens in Mark here. And we're going to start with Mark chapter 9, verse 15. It says, as soon as all the people saw Jesus, they were overwhelmed with wonder and ran to greet him. He was a rock star, huge. He was beyond any kind of rock star we could ever imagine. As soon as they saw him, they were overcome with wonder. They ran to him like the rock star that he was and is. So they go to Jesus. They all know him. They all know what he can do. They all know his reputation. There's a man in the crowd, and he says to Jesus, he says, "Teacher, I brought you my son, who is possessed by a spirit that has robbed him of speech." So there's a guy here with his son. He's basically coming to Jesus to get his son healed. Now, why is he coming to Jesus? Because Jesus is the man. His reputation precedes him. They all know this guy can not only heal, he can raise people from the dead. So the father here, he's doing the right thing. He's bringing his son to the number one person that can heal his son. He knows all about Jesus. So his son is possessed by an evil spirit. So let's go on in the story and see what happens. The father says to Jesus, "Whenever the spirit seizes my son, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid." This was a pretty tough spirit. This wasn't small-time stuff. This wasn't like having a little shakes or something if you don't get your caffeine in the morning. This spirit was in this boy and had complete control over this boy. So this was no easy task to heal this boy of this spirit. How do we know how hard it was? Because the Bible tells us in the very next sentence, the Father says to Jesus, "I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not." Now think about this. The 12 chosen, walking with Jesus, watching him do all of these miracles, they get their chance to drive this evil spirit out of the boy. They can't do it. It didn't happen. They failed. I'm thinking they were embarrassed. I'm thinking they were hanging their heads thinking, my gosh, why can't we do this? Why can't we do this? Heal this boy. And the answer was, sometimes in life, when times get tough for us, when it looks like there's no way out, when it looks like we can't do it ourselves, you call the man. You call Jesus. In your own lives, you don't have to do it on your own. No matter how tough the going gets, you can call on Jesus, and he will respond just like he did here in this story. You can go to him to help you make that extra final step. He'll be there right with you. So let's go on with the story. What does Jesus say to the father? He says very directly, "Bring the boy to me." There's no fussing. There's no, hey, maybe you sinned, Dad, and that's why your son is sick. Or maybe you guys got off the wrong track. Or why did you take him to my disciples when you could have come right to me? None of that. Jesus just says, bring him to me. So let's find out what happened when they brought him to him. It says, so they brought him. When the spirit saw Jesus, so that's that evil spirit inside the boy. It says, when the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into a convulsion. He fell to the ground and rolled about, foaming at the mouth. We're back to this spirit. This spirit was so tough, was willing to challenge Jesus himself. I can imagine if there was another spirit, a less formidable spirit, it would have just ran out of the boy. But this spirit takes control of the boy even more so and literally challenges Jesus. A tough spirit. The point I'm trying to make here is not only could the disciples not drive this spirit out, but even for Jesus himself. This was a tough spirit. But we're going to see how tough Jesus is in the story. It says, then Jesus asked the boy's father, how long has he been like this? Now, don't we all know that Jesus already knew the answer to that question? He knows everything. Jesus knows how long the boy had been like that. So why does he ask this? And we see this all throughout the Bible. Jesus asked a lot of questions. Questions that he already knew the answer to. Why did he ask this question? How long has the boy been like this? Because this is a teachable moment for the whole crowd. Remember back when we started this story, how the crowds flocked to him. There was a huge crowd there. Jesus is looking at this as a teachable moment for the whole crowd. He wants to make the point to this crowd that this is one tough spirit, and this spirit's been around for a long time possessing this boy. When you know you're up a tough battle and you win with Jesus' help, you know you really won. So let's go on in the story and see what happens. The father says he's been this way from childhood. So this was right from the get-go for this little boy. The father says it has often thrown him into the fire or water to kill him. And then the father says to Jesus, and here's the key sentence, the key verse in the entire story. The father says to Jesus, but if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. The key word there is if. The father says, but if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. If. Now, think about it. He is questioning Jesus himself. The father has huge doubt. He says to Jesus, right to his face, he's standing right there, if you can heal him. The father already knew what Jesus had done. He knew his reputation. He knew about the water into wine, the walking on the water, the raising from the dead. They all knew of his reputation. They knew Jesus had the power. But yet the father still says, if you can do it, to Jesus himself. Imagine if you were back there 2,000 years ago, and Jesus is right in front of you, and you're asking for a miracle in your own life. Imagine saying to Jesus, well, if you can do it, Jesus. If, that would be great if you can do it. If, well, that's called doubt. The father had doubt in spite of the fact that Jesus was right there in front of him. He had doubt. Here we are 2,000 years later. Don't you think it's okay for you to have that same kind of doubt? Sure. Jesus, he's with us right now, but he's not standing in front of us like he was in front of this man. You can have doubt. It's okay. And we're going to go deeper into the story, and we're going to see how Jesus treats the doubt. For many of us, I think it would be all about righteous indignation. If the Father said to us, if we were Jesus, I think we'd be standing with our hand on our hip, tapping our foot and saying, what do you mean if? Don't you know who you're talking to? Don't you know I'm the man? Don't you know of all the things I've already done? But not Jesus. Jesus is so full of love and grace and compassion. None of that. There's no recriminations whatsoever because this guy says to him, if you can do it. None of that. So let's see what Jesus does. He says to the man, everything is possible for one who believes. Everything is possible for one who believes. Jesus is so kind and so loving to this man who is just hurting so bad because of his son. Jesus uses this not just as a teachable moment for the man and for the entire crowd, but he has compassion on this man. Everything is possible. He's telling the man, it's okay. You believe, you have some doubt, it's okay. We're still going to get the job done. And let's see what happens. Let's see what Jesus does. In the very next verse it says, Jesus talking to the spirit, the evil spirit says, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again. What I like about Jesus, among many other things, is he left no detail untouched. He didn't just say, evil spirit, come out. He said, never go into him again. Jesus was making sure that this miracle was going to stick. He was making sure that when he left the earth, and he knew he was going to be leaving the earth, he was making sure that that evil spirit didn't come back into that boy. So this is how Jesus does it. Jesus has mercy and compassion on you, and he gets it that you have doubt. He gets it that your faith sometime is low and it's weak. And he says to you, it's okay. His brother Jude says to you in the book of Jude, be merciful to doubters. The whole Bible here is telling you in every way that it's okay for you to doubt. Some days your faith is going to be higher, some days lower, but that's okay. And what happens when your faith is low? Will Jesus still answer? Well, he answered the Father, and the Father says, if you can do it, he answered the Father. He does the same thing for you. And let's turn to the verse that Jesus, I think, most tells us it's okay to doubt. And that's in Matthew 17:20. Jesus says, if you have faith as small as a grain of mustard seed, that's right, you can move mountains. Jesus was telling them, small faith, he gets it. He gets that our faith is low sometimes. And so the mustard seed. Now the mustard seed is the smallest seed on the planet. So in my hand is a pack of mustard seeds. In this little pack of mustard seeds, there's 5,000 mustard seeds. That's how small a mustard seed is. So Jesus is making the point. He is saying to you, it's okay to doubt. It's okay to have small faith. If it's as small as these mustard seed, you can still move mountains. He says to the Father of the Son, you said, if to me, no problem. Here comes your miracle. Here comes your healing. It's the same for you. So if you're going through life and you're doubting, my answer to you is, it's okay.
Hello, friends. My name is David Timothy, but on the streets of Dallas, they call me the Soup Man. And with me today is my lovely wife, Shanna.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to SoupMobile Church. We are so happy to have you with us today.
SoupMobile Church is a one-of-a-kind church on the entire planet. It's because it's the home church for the homeless right here in Dallas, Texas. The homeless have never had their own home church until now. However, we want you to know that the SoupMobile is more than just a church ministry. Shanna, can you tell us about the birth of the SoupMobile?
The SoupMobile was founded in 2003 on a wing and a whole lot of prayers.
Amen to that. So the SoupMobile mission statement is 3 simple words spoken by Jesus himself more than 2,000 years ago. Shanna, can you tell us what those 3 words are?
Feed my sheep.
That's right. Feed my sheep. Feed my sheep. At the SoupMobile, we feed his sheep in 4 separate and distinct ways. First, we literally feed his sheep. The SoupMobile is a mobile soup kitchen serving more than 250,000 meals per year to the homeless right here in Dallas, Texas. The second way we feed his sheep is the SoupMobile shelters the homeless. Our shelter program is transitional. It's designed to take a homeless man or woman right off the streets, put a safe roof over their heads, help them get a job, and then when they're ready, return them as working, productive members of the community. Our shelter program is a hand up, not a handout. The third way that we feed his sheep is at Christmas. Every year at Christmas, the SoupMobile takes 500, yes, 500 homeless men, women, and children, and we put them up for Christmas at the downtown Dallas Omni Hotel. They all get new clothes, fabulous gifts, lots of love, and we hold a huge mega banquet for them and in their honor. But most important, when they wake up on Christmas morning, it's in a warm, safe bed at the spectacular Dallas Omni Hotel, not in a cardboard box under a bridge somewhere. And the fourth way that the SoupMobile feeds his sheep is SoupMobile Church. And for us, this is the icing on the cake. The homeless have been called the largest unevangelized population in the United States. The SoupMobile Church is laser-like focused on bringing Christ to the homeless right here in Dallas, Texas. So that's it in a nutshell. The SoupMobile is really 4 missions in one. We feed the homeless, 250,000 meals a year. We shelter the homeless. We give them a magical Christmas. And of course, SoupMobile Church, bringing Christ to the homeless right here in Dallas, Texas. So ask yourself, do you like what we're doing? Do you think it has merit? If you do, I would ask you to give prayerful consideration to joining the SoupMobile Dream Team. What's the Dream Team? Well, it's people like you and me that have a passion for serving Christ and like the mission of the SoupMobile. What's it going to cost to join the SoupMobile Dream Team? It's $5 a month. Yes, that's it, $5 a month. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that your $5 a month can't possibly make much of a difference in the life of a homeless person. And you would be absolutely right. Your $5 individually can't make much of a difference. But your $5, along with the $5 of thousands of other Dream Team members, can and will make a huge difference in the life of the homeless right here in Dallas, Texas. So how do you join the Dream Team? Simple. Go to our website, soupmobile.org, O-R-G, soupmobile.org. Click on the Dream Team button, read all about it, and if you still like it, you can join the Dream Team right online. And as our special way of saying thank you, we're going to send you, when you join the Dream Team, this special commemorative coin that my wife Shanna is holding. On the front of this coin is a picture of Jesus, and it says, "Feed my sheep," John 21:16. And then on the reverse side of the coin, it says, "Feeding and sheltering the homeless since 2003. And then at the very bottom, it says, "God bless America." So when you join the SoupMobile Dream Team, we'll send you this special keepsake coin. It's an impressive coin. It weighs in at 58 grams. And I promise you, it's a keepsake that you'll be proud to have in your home. Well, that's it for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. May the Lord bless and keep you all.